be live streaming to YouTube now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's good to know as well. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Steve Cremoyson. I am Chair of the Forum, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Kings Barton Forum on Thursday, the 26th of June, and the time is 6:01. This meeting is being held virtually and in accordance with the Council's rules for virtual meetings. Councillors are reminded that although this meeting is being held remotely, they're regarded as being present in a meeting of the Council and should observe the normal rules of behaviour. First of all, please can I ask everyone present in this virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and your camera is turned off whilst you are not addressing the meeting, as this will reduce background noise and avoid unintentional disturbances. And can I also ask members to ensure that their mobile phones are now switched off or silent. This meeting is live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel, and the recording will also be available after the meeting. Subtitles can be switched on, and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. Members and officers, where appropriate for each item, please indicate that you wish to speak or raise a point of order or explanation by raising your hand using the hand icon on your screen, and I will then invite you to speak at the appropriate time. Each member will be invited to speak in turn. Therefore, I would encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible, please. Thank you very much. And I will apologise if a phone rings in my office, as I've got two landline phones in here, and there is just a small chance that someone might ring, and I don't quite know how to sort that out quickly, but my mobile phone is off. So moving on to the actual business items. The first item is apologies, and Nancy, can I have the apologies that you have received?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've received apologies from two County Council members, well, representing County Council in this forum, Councillor Warwick and Councillor Todd.
Thank you for that. Right, the second item on the agenda is the appointment of a vice chairperson for the 2025-2026 municipal year. So I'm looking for nominations. I'm aware that Councillor Morris, who was vice chair last year, is willing to continue. Do I have a proposer for Councillor Morris? And do I have a seconder? Can I have some hands? Okay, I've got Councillor Eve and as proposer and Councillor Porter as seconder. Thank you. Right, and do I have any other nominations for the vice chair role? If you put your hand up, I'm just having a look across both screens. I've got several screens here now. I'm not seeing any other hands up, so I believe we can declare Councillor Morris, you are the vice chair of the forum for this municipal year. Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. I'll go and sit in the vice chair rather than the normal chair. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Right. Now, moving on to disclosures of interest. Usually when we have this item, the main disclosure of interest that we hear is from those representatives who are both city councillors and county councillors, who all declare the same interest. We have heard from our monitoring officer that the advice provided is that declaring those particular interests as county councillors in this meeting, which is technically it's a city council hosted meeting, is that it's not necessary to declare that interest in this meeting. And his view is that this is an informal new non-decision making meeting, so it's not necessary for that particular declaration to be made. However, if there are any other disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests that anyone feels they should declare, now is the moment to put your hand up and let us know. And this applies to members, not to Carla, who clearly have an interest in one direction. So any members feel they've got a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest they wish to declare, I'm not seeing any hands at the moment. So unless one comes up at the last minute, right, okay, let's take that as read then. So we can move on to chairperson's announcements. I'm not going to say anything particular now. I will say a few words later as an intro as context intro for item number 9, when we will talk about, when Councillor Porter will talk about the county council, let's say county council roles, but I will just raise something that we talked about at the last meeting. So moving on, I'm just doing a little bit of juggling of the agenda. I hope we now have a member of the public called Nick Honeyman Brown on the line. Not on the line, on the screen. I'm not seeing him. He wanted to address the meeting with what was a relatively simple question, but he did say he was very time strapped. But as he's not here, I think we will move on. If he joins us by the time we get to the official point for public representations, we can take his question at that point. That's item 7. So let's move on past that. And let's now look at the minutes of the previous meeting. Just bear with me a second when I get my brain into gear for that. Right, I think we're looking at the minutes. Can I first ask if members are agreed that these are a true and correct record of the meeting? If you wish to open your mics and declare that, that would be great. Agreed is sufficient.
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Agreed.
Okay. Not hearing any objections, so I'm going to take that as agreed. Now, just wish also to identify matters arising from that meeting, and of course, if members have got particular items on there which they regard as matters arising, which I don't mention at this point, please do put your hand up, and we'll take that. So the items that occurred to me that we needed to pick up from those minutes were the discharge of conditions for phase 3A and furniture, specifically concerning bike and walking bollards, where Ruth Beard, who is our usual City Council planning representative, agreed to review the consented and outstanding items. I think it was Councillor Porter who raised that. So I'm going to ask here in this forum now if Deborah Smith can just add that to your items that you can cover at the end of the meeting if we haven't covered it before then. And it may be that you don't know the answer, but if you can just make a note and let us know the situation when we get to your item on the agenda. Is that okay, Deborah?
Sure.
Okay. And then I've got several items which I'd ask Carla to take a note of, and it won't surprise me if you've already got those covered in terms of your prepared remarks, but if there is something in there that I raised that you weren't prepared for, at least it gives you probably 20 minutes or so to work out what your position is. So the first one is around the conversation around a large mugger, and there's conversations going on between yourselves, Carla, and the planning department. I think also in the minutes later, Alison Thompson, Carla, said that you were looking at feasibility from a technical standpoint and would provide a response in this meeting. So perhaps you can cover that as part of your contribution later on in the agenda. I'll take that as read. And then there's a second item which was around the increased roof pitch was being considered. That's the roof pitch of the community hall. So I think we'd quite like to hear an update on how that's going. And then there's some references to the Southern Junction improvements and a need for, I'm going to say MOVA, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, MOVA, signals and pedestrian crossing. And I think it's possible Councillor Porter might touch on that in her remarks. And I know that Mr. Slynn in his report also referenced that point. So again, if we can cover that maybe either in Councillor Porter's comments, or perhaps more appropriately in Carla's report. And I think, actually, I'm reading on further. We did ask for a written update prior to this meeting, which I believe Mr. Woodcock of Carla took the action on. Hopefully you can update us verbally and follow up in writing as appropriate. So maybe this is really a Carla item. I can confirm Carla did share the documents that were shared at the last meeting, so I think all members should have received those. If you haven't, let me know after the meeting. Right, and another further item was in the minutes was that Headbourne Worthy Parish Council, there was an item there around how Headbourne Worthy Parish Council were going to manage the community hall, and I know that Headbourne Worthy Parish Council have got a statement to that effect in their report, so hopefully Councillor Waters will cover that off in his remarks. Okay, I think I've covered all the matters arising that occurred to me through looking through the minutes. Has any member got any further matters arising that I've overlooked? I'm not seeing hands going up, so I am going to take that as read. Very good. Right, moving on to item number 6. And if I am going through this, rattling through this a bit fast, I apologise. We've got quite a lot to cover, and we do like to finish before 8. So I apologise if it's all going through a bit too fast, and we may have to keep the pace going. So future meetings of the forum in 25-26 municipal year. The next meeting is scheduled for the 9th of October later this year. And then the third meeting is on the 2nd of March 2026. Hopefully members can note those in your diaries. Okay, I just heard a little bleep. Not sure what that was. Okay, that is Mr. Honeyman Brown. And your timing, Mr. Honeyman Brown, is impeccable, as we have gone from item number 6 in the agenda to item number 7, which is public participation. So I'm going to both apologise, but probably you're also welcome the fact that actually you just joined a meeting and I'm going to ask you to talk.
No worries. Well, thank you ever so much for giving me the opportunity to. It's very much appreciated, and I do apologise to everybody on the council for being 15 minutes late, and thank you ever so much for having me on. So am I able to just dive in, or do I need to do something in kind of specific? No,
you just you posed a question. You sent through an email, or it came through from through Nancy. If you can read it or put it, if you want to reframe it in your own words now, you might want to explain. Fantastic. Without giving your actual address, you might want to say roughly where you live, and hence people will understand the context.
Absolutely fantastic. So thank you everybody for taking the time to listen, and I appreciate you spending the time together on this one, kind of working this through. So as introduction, my name's Nick Honeyman Brown. I live on Hilderbourne Road as part of the King's Barton development. I've lived here for 5 years, and thoroughly enjoyed being part of the community, and think we've got a fantastic thing going on here. A concern that I have at the moment is that around 3 months ago, we were notified of the works that were taking place in respect to the roundabout opposite, which I think is a redevelopment required as part of turning it into the major spine route going out of the development to the A34, etc. Absolutely fine, no issues with that whatsoever. What has, I suppose, concerned me is the news that actually there will be ongoing works relating to Winchester Avenue, specifically around resurfacing, that will take place over the coming X number of weeks. Now, I understand it's 30-something weeks to begin with, but assuming there's delays and everything else associated with that, that could easily get up towards a year. Now, where I have issues and concerns here is that over the course of the last 12 weeks, and for reference, I'm a father of 3 children who are 5 and under, I have seen a lot of very poor driving, a lot of congestion. I have some videos on my phone, which I'm happy to share with the group if needed, of what I can only kind of describe as log jams outside my house, where you actually have cars coming through the development, but then cars also being diverted up off of Andover Road onto the development, and effectively you're forcing that traffic down what is, for anybody who's seen Hildebrand Road, a single carriage road. That means that in order to get past, particularly when it's slightly heavier goods vehicles, or it's a Cardi or Tesco vans, or it's anything of that type of nature, suddenly people are up on the pavements. There's a number of what I'd only call is near misses that have taken place, both between cars, but also good example was the other day I was out on the pavement walking with my daughter, and suddenly there's a car literally one house down that's up on the pavement doing 20-25 miles an hour, and then swerving off the pavement again to get back on the road to avoid actually driving into us. Like, candidly, it's dangerous. And so my ask here, or my question to the group, is what are going to be the plans in respect to, as this development continues to evolve and roadworks take place for another 8, 12, 25, 34, whatever the time period is, how are we going to make that safe? How are we going to ensure that actually there's the right provisions in place in order to ensure that Hildebrand Road in specific, and also the cut through back up Grenadiers to get back up onto the Winchester Avenue, is not going to just be this rat run from next year, which candidly, to my point, I think actually puts a lot of danger out there. So that's the question. Happy to answer any questions around it, but would love to hear the group's response.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Yes, I think, well, a couple of points I just want to, there will be several members here I know will want to ask you questions. I believe you live in the section which is within Headbourne Worthy parish, and I believe, and that would be within the Worthies area, and hence it's also part of the Itchen Valley County Council division. So in terms of, it'd be very interesting to see those pictures. In terms of your councillor support, you can contact Councillor Porter and myself, Councillor Cremoyson, with any further information that you get and want to share.
I'll do that.
So please do that. Now, I thought Councillor Batho might want to chime in here, because he's also a bit concerned about this issue. So just to set expectations, we have an item later on in section 10 of the agenda where Carla will be talking about what they're doing. In that section, we'll be talking about the remedial works throughout. But I'll ask Councillor Batho to come in now, make his comments, and then I'll ask Carla if they could just give a fairly short response to you right now, and if anything further comes out later, we will liaise with you. Okay, Councillor Batho.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was really just to reinforce what Nick has reported to the meeting. I collect my grandchild from Barton Primary on a Tuesday. My wife picks them up on a Monday and a Thursday, and we actually got a friend who lives on Hildebrand, so we actually cut across from the sales office across the road, and we've noticed in the period that the roadworks have been in place, and that the diversion's been sort of requiring traffic to go via that route, there's been a significant increase, and as reported, the speeds of traffic, particularly those are obviously delivery or needing to get onto the next drop, they were being held up there. But also, I think on Grenadiers, there's often cars that are parked, which then causes sort of congestion, because the traffic that needs to get past or has to wait in single file to get past that. So it is a significant problem in terms of the traffic that is now being pushed through the development as a result of that sort of roadworks. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Batho, for joining us while you are on vacation, I believe. So unless there are any further hands up, I'm just going to check my other screen here. Yeah, no other hand. I'm going to ask Carla, could you come in here and just address Nick's comments, you know, reasonably succinctly. I think we have this item further on our agenda later, but I know that Nick wishes to, he's got some other commitments and needs to depart fairly soon. So, Carla, could you join us on the screen?
Yeah, can you hear us?
I can. Just seeing if I can I see you? Oh, yeah, we are. Yeah, yeah.
Can you see us?
Yep.
Hi, Nick, just to address your point, in terms of the diversion route that comes down your Hildeborn Road, that diversion is in place until October, and then the what we call the remedial works that are going on along Winchester Avenue will be moving up the road towards the north, and at that point the diversion route will cease to come past so there'll be a reduction in traffic at that point. I know that doesn't answer your immediate question, but that will give you a bit of an idea for the timescale. And then access will be from the south and the southern junction up to the residents that can get up to their properties where our roadworks will start, and from the north to feed the other side. So that should give you a bit of an idea of the timescale. In terms of the way the users are, the road users are driving on the road, it's difficult for us to comment on that and police that at this stage. But what we can do is certainly make sure that anybody that's associated with our operations that are driving on the road and that diversion route are aware that they need to abide by the highways regulations.
I think from my perspective, and I'm not sure if this is a kind of opportunity to respond or not, but I find that to be a relatively non-substantive response. And the reason why I say that is because actually the way in which this roadwork kind of activity has been planned does not seem to be something which is actually thought through the lens of what it feels like for the residents. Carla opened up the spine road just before you started this work, which immediately connected the two parts of the development and then shoved even more traffic down through. Now, actually, if what could have been done there is you had made the decision in order to actually do this, to in some way actually stop traffic one side of that work from coming through Hildeborn and push it up now that the road's connected to Manley Road, push the remainder of the traffic that was this side of the work down through Hildeborn and Grenadiers, i.e. as normal, then that makes a lot of sense. And I suppose my ask to the group would be that if we were sitting here now saying it's June the 26th, that's going to run until October, and with contingency that may be a little bit later as well, because I noticed on the plans that, you know, you say that there may be the opportunity that stretches out in the event that there is inclement weather or other reasons. My suggestion would be that actually you relook at the way in which those diversions are set up, with the idea being that actually now that the two parts are connected, maybe one part of the development could go in one direction, one part can go another, rather than having to force all the traffic through one very, very narrow piece. As I say, I have a serious concern that at some point someone's going to be injured or actually end up in a situation whereby there's going to be an accident because of the way it's not around people and the need for, you know, your staff to go and actually adhere to the highways regulations. It's about actually being a situation whereby we're funneling a volume of traffic down a road that was never fit for purpose through that extent. So that would be my ask, which is, can you, now that you've got two entrances and exits to the development, actually go relook at the way that diversion system's planned and actually just make it easier for everybody involved?
Yeah, Nick,
thank you. Just pause. Sorry, Rupert, isn't it? I think
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still tuning into the new team at Carla, so apologies. Yeah, Nick, technically the way these things work in this meeting, we address things through the chair. Having said that, I think you articulated it extraordinarily well. And I think your original question was around how appropriate is it that volume of traffic is going through that particular place. I've got Councillor Porter with a hand up. Councillor Porter, do you want to wait until Rupert has finished his comments, or started and finished his comments, or do you want to
Yes,
chime
please.
in right now? Okay,
Yes, please. That's
Rupert,
fine.
if you could, that would be great.
No, I was just saying, Nick, we're happy to take your concerns away and have a look at that traffic management. And we use a professional organisation, a contractor, to put together these traffic management plans. So we will challenge them and look at the volumes and your concerns over the safety, and can come back through the forum with a response.
Thank you, Rupert. I think you're getting a thumbs up there from Nick. I'm going to, in a minute, just a moment, bring in Councillor Porter, but I have been asked offline just to name check the Carla representatives, because there have been changes. So I think Alison Thompson has been on these meetings quite a few times, so most members will recognise you and who you are. And then in the middle, I think we've got Rupert Woodcott, who I think you joined us last time.
That's right. This is my second forum.
Yeah. And then we've also got, I assume, Lance Else by a process of elimination.
Yeah,
is that right?
That's correct. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, while we're doing this, could you just clarify your roles in terms of this project? That way, be very helpful to members to know, just who specifically to contact if we need to, or to address any comments to.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I've recently joined a business in the role of technical director, so I've taken on from what Ian Curry was doing before we split the two businesses in the region.
Right, thank you. Rupert?
And I'm head of technical at Carla, and Lance's right-hand man.
Okay.
Rupert's got some knowledge of the scheme. I'm still trying to get to speed with it.
Okay, brilliant. And Alison, just to remind us of your scope of role.
So I'm head of planning. I've been involved with Kings Barton for probably about 6 years. Just also to clarify that Ian Curry is still within the business. So if we do have queries, Ian is there and available. So we haven't lost that knowledge, and we still work, even though we're in different regions, we still work with each other quite closely. So I just wanted to clarify that Ian's still in the wings.
Okay, that's helpful. Councillor Porter, does that answer your question, or did you want to make a further remark regarding the actual road issue?
Yeah, could I make a remark with looking at the road issue? And firstly, thank you very much for telling me who you are. I'm looking at you on an iPad, and you're about the size of a, well, smaller than a 5p piece, so it's really difficult to see your faces. So I'm sorry I asked for the names. That's really helpful. Nick, I've driven up that road several times to have a look, because I know that I'd heard that there was a query, but I didn't know who the query was from. Certainly, what is also happening is it's adding to the volume of traffic at the bottom, at the traffic lights as well. So it's not only creating a problem along the road, but it's also creating a problem at the traffic lights, which then leads to people being frustrated because they're waiting longer than they think they should do. So I think that's adding to the frustration of drivers. And because the road is quite narrow, although it's wide enough for 2 cars to pass, people do seem to be deciding that the road isn't wide enough and going onto the road. I've seen that myself. So I think it would be really helpful knowing how long this diversion is likely to be if we do have another look at it, because I think that the traffic light issue is going to be part of a conversation. So perhaps we can have a look at it, and I agree we need to keep coming back to the residents. It may not be that it can be completely solved, but certainly making the public aware of how dangerous it is must be part of the conversation. So I think it's worth, we certainly will pursue it for you and come back to you and your neighbours.
Thank you.
I hope that reassures you somewhat, and your thumbs up was good to see. I think it just as a little bit further context, if this was happening on an adopted road, it would almost certainly be the county council that we would be working with directly to look at this and to make sure there was a suitable diversion. And we've had it explained to us how that normally works, is that diversions normally have to use a similarly graded road. And this clearly is not the case. But unfortunately, at the moment, none of the roads in Kings Barton are adopted, unless Carla correct me on that, which means it's not the responsibility directly of the county council to manage this. It's the folks here from Carla who I think have, we're grateful for you for taking that away and giving it some further consideration, and hopefully easing off the volume of traffic that's going through the southern end. Okay, Nick, if you're comfortable enough at the moment, we'll move on.
Thank you.
And do if you can send us any examples that you want to share with Jackie Porter and myself, and we will relay those on to Carla as needed, and hopefully you'll see some improvement. All right, Nick, thank you very much. Okay, I'm just having to go back. I was almost about to go into the minutes. It's in a different order now. So gone through the first part, public participation. Now, Mr. Slynn, Mike Slynn, would you like to join us on the screen? We have got your report. It has been circulated. Do you want to add any comments and remarks over and above what's on your report? You there, Mr. Slynn?
Thank you, Chair. Right, so I've circulated a report, and I believe, thank you, Nancy, you've passed that around to everybody. So really, I think my report stands as it is. I'll just highlight, if I may, some of the key issues. The first key issue is the report by iTransport, which is supporting Carla's request to be allowed to not complete Winchester Avenue until 1,000 houses are sold and occupied. So I looked at the report, and we looked at the report of the Residents Association, and we found there were some things we weren't very happy with, and in particular, we think that now I have no idea whether the county council has approved this requirement from Carla to be allowed to carry on working until 1,000 dwellings have been occupied. I'm assuming it has been, but we feel that pedestrian signals at the signalised junction, Winchester Avenue and Andover Road, should be covering all the pedestrian and cycling movements of the junction. They don't at the moment. And even more importantly, we feel that the signalised junction should be redesigned, because now there's so much traffic using it, and even more traffic will be present once the roundabout is completed and the route through to the rest of Kings Barton, the northern end, which has been cut off for so long, which has been very bad for the community. That's a byproduct of the problems. Anyway, that signalised junction needs to be looked at again. In particular, it should be redesigned and reconstructed to provide a separate phase for all the right turning traffic coming from the city centre wanting to get into the development. There is no separate phase, which means that all that right turning traffic is stuck in with all the straight ahead traffic. The road needs to be widened at that point of the junction so that a separate phase can be provided and road movements can be safe. We feel that a road safety audit should have been provided, and I think if there had been a road safety audit, it would have said, no, this isn't going to be safe up to 1,000 houses being occupied. That's the first point. The second point is about the community bus, and also I believe that Carla are now proposing to resurface all of Winchester Avenue. but actually close Winchester Avenue. Doing that, that's quite remarkable. Normally, one would expect half of the road to be closed at a time, so there will be sections that would have one-way traffic, but at least the whole road will be open. So just ask why that is necessary. One of the negative byproducts of that is that the community bus cannot at the moment use Winchester Avenue to connect the two sections of the development and onwards into the city centre, which is very bad news for everybody in the development. Third point is about the columns. We understand the columns, the county council is requiring the columns to be replaced. This is the street columns, and I know the parish council, and we support them, have asked that there be electrical connection in the columns so that we can put up Christmas lights. So could that be considered as well? Then we've just to come back to the point about the boundary of the parish council. At the moment is not really very satisfactory, because there are upwards of 30 houses in the development, in Kings Barton development, which are not in the parish council, and we are urging that you review just that boundary condition for those 30 plus houses, and please City Council reconsider that as soon as possible, because it does make an administrative and management nonsense of having residents of Kings Barton who are not in the parish council. I think the issue of the community centre and the roof level is going to come up again. Yes, we would really support the idea of having it at least 6.1 metres clearance, so that it can be used as a badminton court, and also if it's a badminton court, then other games can be played in a badminton court size in the community centre. It'd be very good if that could be done. And finally, coming back to the LCWIP, we've seen the draft. We put forward our proposals for improvements to make walking and cycling between the development for residents and the city centre to be safer and more convenient. And we really like a response from the City Council and the County Council as to whether they're going to consider those or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now, I think the first item that you referred to was actually also referred to in the last meeting, and it related to the Southern Junction, and we've already asked Carla if they can address that particular matters arising from last time in their section at item number 10, I think it is. So hopefully, Rupert, you'll be able to pick that up and explain it from your point of view. That Jackie, Councillor Porter rather, may also reference it in her remarks, or she may wait until Carla has spoken, because I know that Councillor Porter is on that case with the county. Regarding the community bus, I think Councillor Porter might also say that I know there's work going on that. We are trying to find we're trying to encourage the right people to find something which is maybe not perfect, but it's better than the current arrangement. So we may hear more about that later on, but there's certainly work going on in the background. In fact, I trial drove a possible route that might actually open up that today. So we'll see how that one goes down. As for the lighting columns, I'll ask Carla if they can comment. Sorry, the PowerPoints on the lighting columns. That has been discussed at a previous meeting, but if it turns out that Carla are having to replace the columns, perhaps Carla could respond to that point when we get to your section of the agenda, and let us know if that is possible or what the problems would be in doing that. Regarding the boundary, previously. I'm trying to think. It sounds like an introduction to a TV series. Previously, there was a discussion around community government review and boundaries, and at that point, the City Council felt it couldn't go forward. But one of the unexpected benefits of the LGR, the local government reorganisation, is that there are plans to have a community governance review, and we will be addressing that point later on, item 12. In fact, I will be addressing that point. So, and one of the express issues we want to try and resolve is to get all of Kings Barton into one place, so it's not in two different jurisdictions. So, but that will be down to the people to decide, because it's a democratic process. And if it turns out that everybody who's in one side of the line says, you know what, we want to stay where we are, and everybody on the other side says they want to stay where they are, then that is the way it may likely end up. So I'm drifting too much into that particular section. Now, the community centre, Carla, we've got a note on Carla to address that point regarding the height, and regarding the LC whip, I'll ask Jackie, Councillor Porter, if she can address that point in her comments. So I'll leave it at that for the time being. Okay, that should hopefully complete the public participation part, and it's now down to us as members to try and pick up on those points as much as we can within the time we have. So now another change in the agenda, if Councillor Watters is ready for me and hasn't tried to fit in a supper or something, I'm going to ask if we can bring Headbourne-Worthy Parish Council's report further up, because I know some of the items, is that okay, Councillor Porter, because I know you're on a time limit. Because I know some of the items you want to raise, I didn't want you to raise them after we've had other presenters and talkers go through some of those points. So Councillor Watters, if that's okay with you, if you want to join us on screen.
Absolutely not a problem. So that's all good with me. Do you want me to address the report now then? Should we go through that, Councillor Cromoisen?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously,
okay, not a problem.
Highlights are better than verbatim, because everyone has seen.
Absolutely, you've had the report.
But
yeah, no problem. Yep, absolutely. So if I go on, firstly, the community building, we've met with Carla, and in terms of the height of the building, we've discussed the outline planning and what that's going to look like. So that's obviously, Carla will obviously address that with you as well. And we've been asked to look at how the community building will run. And so obviously from our perspective, we're looking for trustees to come forward to put a charity trust to run the building. And that was how that's going to work there. In terms of the Kings Barton bus, that's been a discussion at our meetings regarding how that's going to work with the said roadworks. And obviously that's a conversation to be had at a level where we can look at how the bus would possibly run. And thank you, Councillor Cromoisen, for driving the route and trying to find solutions. I mean, obviously with roadworks, there are often challenges to run a timetabled bus in roadworks, so we understand the issues around that one. In regards to, there's a couple of other things we've got on there, so what I don't want to do is particularly go on to those without addressing the other issues that have been raised there. But obviously we've got one of the things about as Mr. Flynn put forward there, the transfer of the front of the development. It's obviously the boundary is a very challenging situation for all of us at the moment, as part of as being part of Kings Barton, but not really being part of Kings Barton, and part of Headbourne-Worthy and not being part of Headbourne-Worthy. We are in a situation where we have to be aware that obviously we are, in regards to maintenance of the areas, taking over large swathes of the land at the front of the development. And if that doesn't come to us, that causes a few issues around how that's going to be managed. So obviously we've been looking into that, and we've had a discussion around how that boundary change would work for us. And essentially, I mean, if I can raise it now, if that's okay, Chair, that one of the things that's come out from the parish briefing is around the governance reviews regarding Winchester City Council and Kings Barton as a development, and Headbourne-Worthy Parish Council's work that we're doing within the development. And I don't want to sort of, spring this upon anybody, but we are slightly concerned because the feeling was that Winchester Town Council in the new formats would be subsuming the parish, and we are a little bit concerned, and as a parish council we've discussed this, around how that will impact the residents of Kings Barton in regards to a much larger town council and the work we're doing, obviously, as a parish council, because we've already got some of the land that we are working on, and we have contracts and development contracts and maintenance contracts for everything around that in the play areas. And so if I can just raise that, and I don't want that to be a sort of a contentious issue, but I think it's important that we're heard as a parish council regarding that, because I feel that that's quite important for the residents, considering the amount of work the parish council have done within Kings Barton. I would be reticent to want to, I don't know, for want of a better phrase, give up the work we've been doing for a much larger area to be subsumed by the town council. So if that can be noted up, that would be very much appreciated. And I think, and in the rest of it, I think regarding that, we've talked about the planning for a large Mooga area, and that's coming up later. And we are obviously, as a parish council, very keen to have that facility in place, and that's something that we'll be looking at further. And hopefully, we've had a discussion around planning and what that might look like. So potentially that could be going in, and obviously that's pending discussions with planning and obviously with Carla as well. And I think that's pretty much it. The only other thing that we had really was that one of the things that's come up on a regular basis for the parish council is the installation of amenities. We have discussed this with Carla, obviously, but regarding, you know, the local shops, all the things that go around that, with the community centre coming into play fairly soon, we have discussed with Carla when we're looking at some sort of level of, you know, installation of some shop units and so on and so forth. But again, we understand that it's all dependent upon Winchester Avenue Spine Road being opened and then footfall into shops and that sort of thing. So that's pretty much where we are from the parish perspective at the moment, if that all made sense.
It all makes sense to me, Councillor Water. You have one of the advantages that all members have in this meeting, which is as we get to those items in the agenda, you know, as we're discussing each of those items, and there is one around community governance review later, you can ask questions at that point in the same way as any other formal member of the committee. So I think we've got all those items that you've just referred to on the agenda coming up. So let's move on and pick them up at the right point. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, now moving on to item number 8. This is for the Winchester City Council planning officers. Deborah Smith is joining us today in place of Ruth Beard, and this is really just to give us an update on the number of occupations. That's a number of, if you like, homes within Kings Barton that are registered with the City Council as occupied. Deborah, I know it's just a number, but you know, you can add a bit of a flourish around the number.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The current number, according to our council tax records, is 688 units that are registered on the site, with 2 of them being unoccupied currently.
Unoccupied, so right. Okay. All right, so and this is just for anyone else who's not aware of it. The number here is relevant in terms of the S106 trigger points, in terms of various amenities and infrastructure that, you know, has S106 trigger points on it. So, and this helps guide us into thinking, okay, are those pieces of infrastructure moving ahead and on target to be delivered? So 688 is where we're at. Thank you, Deborah. We're going to come back to you a bit later on for any other points that you're going to raise. So now on to item number 9, Hampshire County Council, and I'm going to ask Councillor Porter if you can bring us up to speed with the Hampshire's position on the S106 changes. And just as a sorry to delay you coming in, Jackie, as agreed at the last forum, I wrote to the County Council on behalf of the whole of the forum to basically, it was quite a lengthy email, somewhat, if you like, internalise some of the frustration that we all have with the speed of how things are going. But to net it out, I was asking the county to provide a plan. To be clear, when I talk about a plan, I don't mean plans as in planning, I mean plans as in a schedule for the project that the public could refer to as to monitor progress against schedule. I did eventually get an initial response, which some members here will know I was a little bit disappointed with. However, then a few days later, we got another much more constructive response, and Jackie has been qualifying that and doing a lot of work to kind of iron out, sort of really get into the details of what does this mean and all that sort of thing. And I hope that Jackie will be able to enlighten us all. I think one of the aha moments for me was that really what the county confirmed there in their response is that the King's Barton is an MDA where it's Carla's project and it's Carla's to manage, and it's Carla's. Apologise for talking about you in this collective noun, guys, but it's Carla's to manage in terms of public expectations. And the county's role here is as a consultee to Carla on how to navigate the process of the road construction and getting it through all the processes to TRO. But that stuff happens between Carla and the county, and then any requests for milestones, etc., should be between this forum and Carla. So Carla, we're probably now going to be asking you for some of things like schedules. So I'm going to hand over to Jackie, who I know has been working on quite a few issues around the county perspective on this S106. Jackie, please.
Thank you. I will tell it as the County Council have told me, and following your throwing the letter to you, and I've been interrogating some of those points, as you said. So I've got a piece of paper here which I've combined several emails and put them together into one response. It can be available after this meeting, so that if anybody wants to keep it and distill it and ask more questions, then you're welcome. So the deed of variation has now been completed and updates the original S106 agreement with the new terms as set out below, and I'll read those in a moment. But I just wanted to address the southern traffic lights. Like Mike, I've been and Kings Barton Residents Association, I've been very concerned about that junction. It doesn't have the capacity to take the full arrangements for the Winchester Avenue. It was a temporary arrangement, and now it's carried on. So the southern temporary junction works are not set out in the S106 agreement, because the junction, as I understand it, is covered by a live 278 agreement, which covered the temporary layout to 650 occupations. As that point has been passed, additional measures have been secured through that same 278 agreement. And Hampshire County Council advised me that the traffic signals team is working closely with Carla on progressing designs to improve the working of that junction, ready for implementation. And an update on timescales will be provided shortly and will be coordinated with on-site remedial works that Carla are currently carrying out. Perhaps if Carla don't agree with that, they might like to say so when it gets to their report. Now going back to the trigger points, there's one at 725 occupations, so we're at 686 at the moment, aren't we? Hampshire County Council is actively supporting Carla in preparing the implementation programme ahead of formal submission, which is expected later in the year when the 725 occupation figure is forecast to be reached. I've really gone into that with the officers, and I do understand that this is a relationship between Carla and Hampshire County Council. That implementation programme should be ready, and hopefully we'll be able to see that in October when we come to the next meeting. 750 occupations is to ensure the central section of Winchester Avenue is open for all users. I was a bit concerned about that because I want to make sure that it's open for all users, but it doesn't create the problems that was mentioned earlier. I still a little bit concerned about that 750 occupations, but perhaps Carla can assure me otherwise. It was opened with a fanfare, but nevertheless, we've now got a situation where the road isn't fully open. But by 1,000 occupations, it's in the S106, Winchester Avenue will be opened with all associated highway works completed and open for all traffic. That's pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles. That's 1,000 occupations. The County Council has clear lines of communication established with Carla, and regular meetings are taking place to oversee the delivery of those works, all of which is being coordinated with the relevant Hampshire County Council teams. So I'm assured that by 1,000 occupations, all associated highway works includes the TROs and the Section 38 adoptions, etc. That is going to be a very tall order, actually. Then 1,050 occupations is a new condition, and it's to complete the downgrading of the existing Andover road works, creating new pedestrian and cycle route and local access in accordance with the approved design code. So that's 1,050 occupations which has been put in, because that was a bit vague in the original. It wasn't really very clear. So that implementation programme will be a significant document in facilitating the delivery of the works and will be used to monitor and report on the progress. And it will be set out the timings of the works in greater detail. And I was really pleased to have a piece of paper that states that Hampshire County Council state it's an important additional obligation to have this agreed with Hampshire County Council. So I think that this forum can consider that a success when we see that implementation programme, but we still haven't seen it yet. The public consultation, because there will be a consultation, will mainly focus on the traffic regulation order process. Now, I've seen the first ones of those already. They include no parking type process, and also the arrangement for taking traffic off the old Andover Road. They're two separate TROs. I think they will be joined eventually, but that goes through a drafting process at Hampshire County Council, which takes some time. And then in addition, Carla's been advised to undertake public engagement on the proposals to downgrade Andover Road. This ties up actually, Councillor Crimoyson, with what you were saying, which is that it's Carla's responsibility to do that. So they consider that appropriate, given the detailed designs of those works haven't been shared before, apart from the cross sections in the original approved design code. And I have to say, I keep saying, what's it going to look like? What's it going to look like? And I'm sure thousands of other people wonder about that too. So that's that piece of work. So hopefully we've covered quite a lot of what Mike Slynn talked about, and also what you wanted to talk about and what you asked for clarification last meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Porter, for that update. I know there was a lot of work going on in the background to try and nail some of those things down. I know you are also technically, I think, on holiday, so thank you for joining us tonight. Right. I also know you've done some work on the Kings Barton 1 bus.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I may have stolen your thunder. I don't know if you want to say anything more on that subject. And also, Mr. Slynn raised the issue of LC Whip.
Yeah.
And that might also relate to what you were saying about the downgrading of the old Andover Road, or the current Andover Road.
It does, but also I think that it's relevant that the County Council is now looking at all of the cycling and walking facilities through the whole site with a view about school access. So this means that that will be a separate piece of work which I'll take up and hopefully report on by October.
Right.
Okay. So I've already said to Mr. Slynn that I fully agree with him that we have to get a good way of reaching Winchester. I think the station approach master plan helped with that to some extent, and I want to see, and we've also talked with the bus officers about the suitability of stops to make it easier for people to get from Kings Barton quickly to the station and through to the town. So, but I would like to just say that we're doing some work with that at the moment at the County Council, and I will come back to you as soon as possible, hopefully before next October. Kings Barton bus, two or three things actually. First, we had a query about the use of Hildeborn for a bus. I think it ties up, in fact, with the conversations that were just taking place just now with Nick, and I think it's part of the whole situation there. But Hampshire County Council advised me that if the road is suitable for a bin lorry, then it's suitable for a bus. But the road isn't adopted yet, so bearing in mind the width is suitable for waste collection, the bus can continue on this route as it is. But I'm hoping that that's not one of the services that's creating a problem for residents. But I was quite surprised, and I know that you were, when we heard the length of time these total diversions are going to take, which is 18 months, and they're going to be 6 different diversions. So the current diversion is the first of about 6 phases, and I'm sure that Carla would like to talk about this a bit later on, which will result in Winchester Avenue being in a condition fit for adoption. So with 6 phases over 18 months, there could be the potential for 6 different timetables and stop locations, and then inevitably the public would be confused about what those stops would be and the timetable, and every time the bus stops have to be changed, the timetable has to be changed. So the proposal that we made was that either we remain the same for the total period, which would be regrettable but practical, or the alternative is to seek a route that is more resistant to change through the whole site, because only Carla know really the effect of what each diversion will do, and that's why you took that route today. Thank you very much for taking it to see if it works. And we would very much like to try and find a way to make that route as successful as we can, bearing in mind we have a travel plan to have KB1 bus, which we've been working really hard on to deliver for all this time. And also we want people to feel happy using public transport and rather than a car. And if we don't get this right, we're driving people back into vehicles again. So perhaps Carla might like to have a think about how we might be able to simplify the bus diversion so that it is a diversion that works for longer rather than changing it every 12 weeks. That's what we wanted to do. I'm just going to say as well that for the public record, the start point of the route, the officer has arranged for one of the bus stop people to go back out and have a look at this, because obviously now the north point isn't the same because the road is closed. So it means the bus route at the beginning of setting the bus off in the first place is now not correct. So I was going to use a rude word, but I won't. I think the situation is difficult, can I say?
Yeah.
But it's on a top priority for us, because the Kings Barton bus is part of the travel plan, and we want that to work, and we want hopefully Carla to work with us on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Porter. I'm sure Carla will address some of those points, and they're up next. So I think that's it in terms of item number 9. I'm not seeing any members' questions for you. Oh, I've got one from Councillor Morris.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Yeah, you said the implementation programme should be ready by October.
Yeah.
Is that a commitment that we should I take it as the commitment is going to be at the next Kings Barton Forum meeting that it'll be provided for us?
Yeah, I think we have to check with Carla, because it's very clear that implementation programme has to be confirmed by 725 occupations. I'd hope that Carla will be very close to 725 occupations, but only they can tell us. But we'll be able to, we'll hopefully have an idea of that implementation programme. But only Carla really can confirm that.
Thank you.
At this point, it's Hampshire County Council's intention to keep that work up to date.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Porter, I know you are on holiday with your family, and you may have someone reading the Riot Act to you to.
I want to listen to the answers.
But if you do find the pressure to leave too great, you just let us know that you've left, and then that way we won't start talking about things where we're hoping to bring you in on the conversation.
This is very important to me as well as to the public.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that, Jackie. I'm sure everyone does too. Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to Carla. Hi, Alison, Rupert. Oh, and sorry, is it John? I should know. I should have remembered.
And Lance.
Lance. Sorry. I apologise.
No problem.
Hopefully, getting it wrong once, I will hopefully not make that mistake too often. So hopefully, I mean, we shared through Ruth a kind of wish list of 6 items to cover off. That I'm sure you want to talk about your successes, of which the new smaller mugger is certainly one. The forward plan or the implementation plan, which Jackie just referred to, the remedial work, which has been a subject of conversation at several points so far, update on the schedule for other amenities. Item 5 was just if you do share any documentation, please do be prepared to share it with us soon after this meeting. And then the last item was the car share, just getting an update on what's going on there. I think other items which we've carried forward from the minutes last time is the community building raised height, the southern junction, and the large Mooger or mugger. So over to you. I'm not sure who's going to lead. Guess it's going to be Rupert and Alison.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tag team. We've sort of divided out in terms of who's addressing what. It's actually great to actually start with successes. It's nice to start on a positive note. I think you've actually probably identified the key success is the opening of the Mooger. That's been used extremely well. The feedback that we've got is from the community and residents has been very, very positive. So that opened in May. So yeah, that's been, I think, one of our big successes. The other successes, I think we've also submitted phase 3B, the reserve matters application that's currently with council, and also we've submitted a full application for some residential units in the neighbourhood centre, but more importantly includes the community building and the nursery. So that's been validated by Winchester, and we're having comments being fed through, which we're addressing. So I think it's just positive to see that we're sort of progressing with phases, but also that the neighbourhood centre, we're trying to get that community building up, because we're very aware of the 800th occupation. So we're just trying to move quickly with Winchester City Council to get permission for that full application.
Good, thank you.
So I'll hand over to Rupert in terms of the next item on the agenda, forward plan.
I was just can I pick up on the implementation programme first? Is that okay?
Yeah, brilliant.
Councillor, just because it is, we agree that it is an important aspect here, and our expectation is that by the 725th occupation we will have, which we expect to be in Q4, the end of this year, October, we hope we'll be able to share something with you. We're working extremely hard with Hampshire Highways, but they are also working very hard on this, because it will set the overall programme for the opening of the Winchester Avenue and the downgrading and landscaping of the Andover Road. So we share the same importance, or we value it as much as the community do. So I think it's worth. We are working, as I've said, very hard to achieve that date. With regard to the and you mentioned forward plan there, Alison, the implementation plan and where we are. So we've already mentioned that the link between 1B, what we call phase 1B, and 2A is in. We expect the footpath connection, which I think was picked up very lightly earlier in some of the comments, will be in by the end of September. We're currently underway, as we've discussed, with what we call phase 1A remedial works, and the roundabout area, that we expect to complete in Q4 of this year. October is our aspiration. And then we'll move on to the next stage. We're moving north up the Winchester Avenue towards within phase 1B, and we expect that to take around 8 months to complete. The link from 1B leading to the Hairstock Junction, so to the north of the site, within the boundary of our site, that links into the northern junction, the Hairstock Junction, that's currently underway. We're starting with the earthworks and forming the levels in that area, and we expect that to be completed this side of Christmas. And I think that is probably it in terms of the forward plan and the next stages of work that we're undertaking.
I think the implementation programme, once agreed, will then lead into the next phase of the development. We've got dates we've discussed with Hampshire that are being placed into the programme, and as soon as that's available, which will be by the next meeting, we're happy to share that with everybody. I don't know if people are aware, we're having bi-weekly meetings with several members from HCC and the highways team to try and move this forward, and there's a dedicated resource that's working with both ourselves and Hampshire in the implementation of the programme.
Okay. All right. So I think you've covered items 1, 2 and 3 within your section. Were you going to say any more about that? I've got Councillor Batho who wants to ask a question. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Just with regards to the future phasing of works and the bus routes and diversions that were mentioned earlier, I mean, obviously we're happy to work and liaise with whomever we need to try and come up with for routes and programmes that is the least disruptive for both the community and ourselves, and try and work with you rather than dictate what we're going to do.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Batho, do you want to jump in here? I'm not sure. I think you may have raised your hand a bit earlier, and I've not noticed until now. Councillor Batho.
That's okay, Chair. It was just sort of a general comment. Just to follow up on the area around the mugger, the new small mugger. Just again, I mentioned earlier about collecting grandchildren and then using that space. It's actually open. There are no fences in terms of the actual play area. One of the concerns I have is that bikes and sort of other wheeled transport is actually using that area. I know if it was then adopted, it would be down to the county, to the city council or to the parish council to take action again, to try and put signs up or have communication with the residents. What actions are Carla doing in the interim to try to reduce that potential for accidents? And the other question I had was in terms of the junction and the remedial works to the roundabout. I understood that to be resurfacing work because of the surface that had been put down was not acceptable to the county. But I understood. I've seen that there's been quite significant excavations and the installation of drainage. So I just wondered if you could clarify exactly what that sort of work has been and what's required that extended closure of that area of the development. And I was also wondering, in terms of the actual trigger points, whether you have a current figure for the number of actual houses that have been started, because I think there's been a significant increase in the number of actual starts, and I'd just be interested to know what that current number is. Thank you.
Before I hand off to Carla to respond on that, just to clarify, Councillor Batho, I think it's all things being good. I think it's the intention for the mugger play area and the open space immediately around it, to ultimately end up under the care and the care of the parish council, Headbourne Worthy Parish Council. I think that's the intention, but there is a process to go through where Carla have to complete all the works, and then they have to negotiate with the parish council on any snagging, if you like. But I think the point you raise around, if you like, the play area really around it, and it's not fenced, and cyclists and all that sort of thing, I think in the long run that would be for the parish council to look at how it would consider the management of that. But in the meantime, they would probably want to work with Carla to get things in place before handover. So I'm sure Councillor Watters would probably want to take note of that. So Rupert or Lance or Alison, do you want to come back on those other points?
Yeah, I'll pick up first, if it's all right, the remedial works that are underway within 1A currently. There is realignment, so it's not just a surfacing work, Councillor Batho, that is underway. There's realignment of the roundabout. There's elements of drainage work that are going on with regard to what's termed grips that will take water off the road into the swales. So there's quite a lot of remedial work that's underway with HCC's or further to comments that have been made by Hampshire Highways as we've been going through the adoption process for that work and the sign-off process for those areas. So it's reasonable amount of work that's being undertaken. With regard to the Muga, I think I'm right in saying that there will be a fence.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the approved planning drawings, and I need to check with the site team, but there should be a 1.2 metre high cleft rail and mesh fence. If that's not been installed, it will be installed as per the approved planning drawings. And hedging as well along certain sections.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear. Councillor Batho, did you want to follow up with a supplementary, as it were?
Yes, that would be useful, because and signage to indicate that bikes and scooters should not be allowed in the. It will be a standard sign on a Winchester City Council and I'm sure a parish council facility that means that then at least those parents who want or adults that want to point out that fact have then got the support of the signage to actually be, sort of on their side, so to speak. It just helps when you're confronting people to actually have something official that you can then refer to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll pass that on to our estate manager and say that that's something that's been requested, which I can completely understand the rationale for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just further clarification then, so the drainage work, is that as a result of the flooding that was sort of experienced by the southern end of Winchester Avenue last year? Is that additional drainage as a result of that that flooding that occurred?
I wouldn't know, Councillor. It may well be, but I understand that they've, as we've gone through the technical approval process with Highways, Hampshire Highways, they've asked for us to change the drainage detail slightly, asking us to increase the number. So what's being done will only improve that situation.
Thank you, Rupert. That's good to hear. Okay, just want to make sure we stay on track. So I think you've covered your points 1, 2, and 3. Sorry,
Chair. There was just the additional question of the number of starts that have happened, sort of at the moment.
I apologise.
Thank
We'd
you.
have to get that checked. It was actually something I did want to clarify. I did ask for the current occupations, and we've got it at 680. So there is a difference of 8 between ourselves and Winchester City Council. But we can, if it's okay with the chair, can we provide an update on? So it's unit starts. So
yeah.
So foundations, is that from foundation? Is that what you're?
Yeah. Essentially, I walk around the estate quite often, as obviously does Councillor Cromoison. My feeling is that there has been a significant additional number of starts, and as a commercial organisation, I would expect you to want to complete those, and therefore those numbers of 725, which is actually only sort of around about 30-40 away from where we are now, will actually happen much quicker than potentially October.
We'll provide an update.
I think that'd be helpful, Alison. I think as for the difference, as Deborah said, this is based on the numbers of council, I think it's council tax registrations. So given that that is governed by someone in effect registering and agreeing to pay money, I'd like to think that that is a an accurate figure. But yeah, if you find it, is 680, do let us know, and we'll try and reconcile those two numbers. Right, and yes, I mean, I agree with Councillor Batho. I mean, I've noticed this for the last probably 6, 8, 9 months. That actually there's been a significant ramping up of the scale of operations, and I'm sure there's that will eventually flow through into numbers of property homes coming onto the market. So expecting to see the run rate increase. I think your middle order is probably going to be quite strong in cricketing terms. Right, okay. So in terms of what we got in terms of the original agenda, an update on the schedule for other amenities, e.g. the recreation ground, the car park, which I notionally tagged it as park and ride. Be interesting to hear what you've got to say there.
Okay. The park and ride works are due to commence in the middle of 2026. We will be doing earthworks ahead of that date to try and get the ground to the finished levels. But the idea is to try to get that progressed as far as we can ahead of doing the final tying-in works with Hairstock Lane as part of the Northern Junction works. And completion date, we're looking for Q2 in 2027 for the park and ride. The sports pitches, the groundworks have commenced to bring the ground to the levels required. We have a requirement to hand the pitches to the council by Q3 2027. We're hoping to improve upon this, and we're looking to hand them over in the summer of 27, maybe 2 or 3 months ahead. But that will be subject to the pitches settling in, because they have a minimum of 12-month period for the drainage and the ground to take. And the community centre planning application has been touched on previously. It's been submitted, and we're currently working up the production drawings, looking for a start later this year. Well, that's obviously dependent upon the receipt of planning. And our temporary sales building, we're on progress to open that in early September.
Okay. Yes, there was a little bit of discussion among parish council members and me as to whether this structure that was going up, that we could just about see over the fence, was effectively the community building or the sales office, and I put my money on it being the sales office.
That's correct.
And as I drove through today, I think that's the sales office from my memory of the shape of it. So yeah. That's good to know. So thanks for the updates on the recreation ground. I think so. With respect to the park and ride, I think somehow in the community there has been an expectation set that it would be coming forward a lot sooner, possibly later this year, which caused some questions of some of us councillors. And I think what we would also say is what Carla is building is a car park. It's not actually providing a bus service. I know arguably a pedantic point, but it would be helpful if in all our language about this, we talk about it as the car park supporting the park and ride, because ultimately the service is provided by, will be, if there is, you know, the service is a separate item that it can't happen until there is a car park, but it won't be Carla providing that service unless you are, unless you've got plans that I don't know of.
No.
Unless you're moving in, you're proposing to become a bus operator.
Yeah, yeah, no plans.
Which might explain why you have an office in Winchester. Right, okay. So you covered the community building. You didn't talk about the raised roof. Where are we at with that? Because that was certainly talked about at the last meeting, and I think you were going to look into it. How's that discussion going?
In terms of the community building, where the consultation and the elevations we showed at the public consultation, the ridge height was 5.5 metres. And as Mr. Slynn said, we did take away that that needs to be increased in height. So the submitted drawings, the ridge height is 6.5, so it has gone up by a metre.
Okay, and I presume those are external dimensions, not the internal.
No. I mean, the intention was never for it to be used for like Sports England badminton, but the height is, you know, if someone wanted to, if the parish council wanted to have a badminton facility in there, but it's not designed to Sports England, and we've been quite clear that it's not for badminton, like proper professional games.
Yeah, it could be fun badminton rather than than
social badminton.
Social, that's right.
Yes, social. Right, great. Okay. Not seeing any questions from members, so let's move on beyond that one. Before we move, we've got documentation. The last item on your thing was the car share, so I just want to cover off the other items, such as the which came from the minutes from last meeting. The large mugger, or Muga, as some people call it. Where are Carla at with those conversations?
We have looked at that. Would be on a future phase. So phase, I think it's phase 4B. It's the one that been identified currently as an informal kickabout near the railway line. We can provide a large Muga in that location. It would require some retaining structures, but we have said that we will commit to providing the large Muga. We just need a letter from Winchester City Council just to explain that that is a requirement. We have had a draft from Ruth Beard. We're just reviewing that at the moment just to make sure that it ticks the boxes. But in principle, yes, Carla is committing to providing a large Muga on a future phase within the development.
Okay, all right. If that's getting sticky, because I only heard about that requirement of a letter through remarks from the parish council, and as this is a city council, you know, some support you need from the city council, it would be very helpful to see that correspondence. I will touch base with Ruth, but if that is becoming a little bit sticky or slowing down, if you could just contact me, or for that matter, Councillor Porter, who has a role overseeing planning in the city council, we can try and help you unlock that, because I think it would be a good thing to secure that. So really appreciate you going through those hoops for us. And perhaps it would be good to touch base anyway next time, you know, perhaps with Ruth and Councillor Porter and myself, and we can just meet you in your Winchester offices sometime and just cover off some items. Okay, sorry, Mike Slynn, you've got your hand up. It's not regular protocol to have anyone who isn't a member asking questions, so if it's a quick one, we can try and answer it.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chair. I thought you'd asked Carla to run through some answers to all the issues that I raised. Thank you very much for clarifying the ridge height. That's excellent news. Thank you. But there was also the issue of the single lane working on Winchester Avenue for the remedial measures that are required there. We're wondering really why that is necessary, rather than, sorry, you're talking about closing Windsor Avenue for the finishing works, so wondering why that is necessary, why you can't have single lane working. And the other point was about electrical connection on the new columns, 3 columns, so that we can put up Christmas lights. Perhaps you could answer those 2 points. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think kind of already acknowledged the challenges with the diversion, so I think they're going to take that away. But I think your suggestion of a solution of single lane working, perhaps Carla could have a look at that. It's an immediate response, and then also look at that, and also the point about electrical connections on the lights. That would be great too. Thanks.
Chair, is it okay just to answer the question on the Christmas lights? Because we have actually already investigated that and liaised with the parish council and provided an update. We have had discussions with Hampshire City Council in relation to having that, with the swapping out the street lights and having that facility. It does raise an issue on the adoptability of the columns, which Hampshire have raised. And there's a liability as well. So the advice that we have received from Hampshire City Council is it's probably not something that they want to entertain.
Can I clarify if you mean Hampshire County Council?
Hampshire County Council, apologies.
The Highways Authority.
Highways, yes.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. And did you want to move on to the other point about the taking on board the suggestion of single lane working on Winchester Avenue?
We're happy to have a look at it. It can cause the highways authorities do have they have concerns over the jointing of 2 surfaces. So when you do it half and half, it may be something that they raise concerns over and may not allow. But we will happily raise it with them. As Lance has mentioned, we have a very regular fortnightly meetings with them, and we'll add it to the next agenda. And by the time we come back to the next meeting, we'll be able to give you an update.
We'll have an answer for you for the next meeting.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I've heard that's an issue where you get these deep pothole cracks down where 2 pieces have been on motorways. I can well understand that.
It's a weak point.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Bather, you want to chime in here?
Yes, I just wanted to come back to the mugger and the fact that the provision of that, I think, is to address a very dire need in terms of provision for the 13 to 18 age group. And unfortunately, I think the small one that's been installed does.
Sorry, Councillor Bather, you've just frozen. I'm going to move on. Oh, you've just come back.
Yeah, so I just wanted to reinforce the fact that the community does need a facility of a large mugger in that development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think Alison has already, in effect, given as much of a yes as she can at this point. If as I suggested, we touch base and we'll see how we can unpick things. Remove any sticky points to get the correspondence that you need. All right, thank you. Okay, so car share. We haven't talked about that at a Kings Barton Forum meeting since I've been chairing this forum. So this is something new. I believe there's an upcoming S106 trigger. I apologise, I can't remember if it's a 725 or a 750, but it's getting close. It might even be 700. I just wondered if you could just share with us, how is usage going? What's changing? Is there a chart of the booking rate? If you've got a nice graph showing how things have gone up and what happened in COVID, and what is Carla or your partner doing to promote and encourage use and demand of this? And what are your thoughts on expansion of capacity, perhaps having a point in the northern area as much as the southern area? Thank you.
I do have a nice graph that I will share after the meeting, so that can be added to the minutes.
Brilliant.
In summary, we have had a car on site since March 2022. That was, as you correctly said, it was a requirement under the 106 that we provide at least one car from that 150 trigger. There is a 750 trigger for consideration of a second car club, if that is viable. What we've found in terms of the usage of the current car, which is actually located on phase 1A, the usage is actually quite low. It's 60% over the last 3 years. And we have got a graph that can show how that moves through the year as well, because it does. What we've been told by co-wheels is that it's sort of slow in the beginning of the year, and then it ramps up from Easter to summer, and then it drops back down, and then it goes back up again at Christmas.
Right.
So we've had 270 bookings from the date that it's been on site from March 2022, and it's covered about 9,300 miles. So as I said, the use is low at 6%. The peak was 23% in May 24.
Sorry, did you say 6% or 60?
6%. It's yes, it's very low. Co-wheels actually did approach us and said it's not commercially viable and they wanted to remove the car. We clearly said, well, we've got an obligation under 106 to keep it. So Carla are now funding it for another, we've already done 3 years, we're doing another 3 years. So in total, it'd be funded by us by 6 years. And then we're hoping it would then be self-funding, which is what the expectation was for that initial 3 years. It should have been self-funding, but we're having to give it a bit more support for an extra 3 years. And then hopefully what we're trying to do is also consider the location of the vehicle, because as I said, it's on 1A. Once we've got the community building up and running, there is a spare capacity in the parking that we're hoping then we can move the car into a more of a central location, and we think that would greatly assist the usage, and also we'll have more residents moving in that will hopefully support the car.
Okay.
Bookings have been reduced by 25% this year compared to the same period last year. So there's been a bit of a drop off this year, which we can't explain. We're not quite sure what the rationale is behind that. We do seek to promote the car share as much as we can. We've got a travel plan coordinator whose job is to implement the travel plan. There's a travel plan webpage which has all the details on that, highlights all the different bus routes, walking, car club. We also offer a £25 driver sort of reduction for each resident from first occupation, so that just incentivizes people to start using it. It's on the webpage, as I've said. We have a travel plan pack, and that's issued to all our residents, and it's also on the sales team as well. They have all that information, so we try and promote it as much as possible. The usage is low. We also have the newsletter, which will include it in the next newsletter that we send out to residents, just to remind people that it's there. But I think one of the key, if we can move the car to the neighbourhood centre, I think that would greatly assist as well. But I'll share the graph that you can see the usage and how it's gone up and down over the last 3 years.
Okay, I guess certainly, I guess with that level of usage, it would be very hard to justify a second vehicle. You mentioned a travel plan coordinator, and that you're doing some things to communicate it through your, communication channels, such as, I think, do you do a leaflet every now and then?
We have a newsletter, and then there's also a travel plan, dedicated travel plan webpage that has all the details.
I would consider, and it will need some coordination, but suggesting to the travel plan coordinator that they liaise to the parish council, and Councillor Watter is actually here, because the parish council puts out a regular newsletter, and they could, often they do need a bit of copy, something interesting to balance off some other news. So they might well regard that as worthwhile promoting. And secondly, there is a organisation called Kings Barton Residents Association, of which Mike Slynn is the chair, and he's a representative here. And they have a Facebook page, which my understanding is, I'm not on it myself, but my understanding is you have to live within Kings Barton to be on it. And I would imagine they might be quite happy to promote that. So perhaps Mr. Slynn, if you're still with us, and Councillor Watter, if you want to just jump in and confirm that I'm not making a promise that you feel like there's no chance of it being supported.
If I come in there, Councillor Cremoyson, yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. We've just done our newsletter for this month, well, this quarter coming out, and that's on its way. But for the next one, yeah, we're very, very happy to put that into there, and that's actually the sort of thing that we want to promote and make sure that, you know, we've got as part of the environmental work that we do and all the work along that. Yeah, please give us an article, we'll put it in for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as Councillor Watter, you are also a member, I believe, of the Kings Barton Residents Association.
I'm now not Councillor Cremoyson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm now on the parish council, so it's slightly sort of.
Yeah. Okay, then, Mr. Slynn, Mike, would you, if you had an appropriate copy, would you be very willing to promote it? I'm sure you would.
Yes, of course we would. Yes, very happy to get some more information from you, Alison, so we can do that. Brilliant.
Perfect.
Chair, can I ask a direct question to Mr. Slynn?
Yes.
Sure.
I was just wondering, is there a residents association meeting that we could do a presentation? I could bring iTransport, the travel plan coordinators, and they could present. I'm just wondering how we can get it out to residents and give them a bit of an update.
Yes, there is. We got one coming out quite soon. So if you perhaps you'd just like to drop me an email, we can sort that out.
Thank you.
Would you have my email address? I'm assuming it's.
I do, yes.
Well, you do. Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got, thank you, Mike, if you could mute. Councillor Bather, you've got a question, please.
Well, just another point. There are, again, significant number of residents just across the Andover Road, some probably actually closer to the current car club than some of the Kings Barton residents who might be interested. There is obviously the Littleton Hairstock Parish Council. There's also a number of community centres and churches who I'm sure would put either information on their notice boards or again communicate that through their web pages or newsletters. So I think what my point was in terms of the travel plan, surely it's to include the wider community, not just the residents of Kings Barton, because it's actually the wider community that are going to use these facilities as well. So I think from a travel point of view, maybe not just be so looking within the boundaries of the development, but to those adjacent areas that might then benefit from those facilities that are being presented as opportunities. So thank you.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. And I believe Councillor Porter once tried to register to use the service, but was refused because her address is outside of Kings Barton. So Councillor Porter, if you're still with us, perhaps you could just confirm if I've misrepresented you. And I certainly don't know how I could register.
Sorry, yeah, I have actually registered and have booked it. So just because it was to see whether the service was available. So it is something that can be addressed by sort of residents, as I say, just across the Andover Road.
Yeah.
And it should be commercially available for anybody to book it. That's part of the contract. But please let me know if there has been any issues, and I can flag that to co-workers.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But in terms of usage, it actually needs to be publicised and made aware, people made aware of it. So I think that is also a key part of Carla's responsibilities. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we start with what we've already discussed, I think there might be some other opportunities to move in, sort of attract people from the adjacent areas. I think it would be really good to get that utilisation rate up higher. And hopefully that would reduce the subsidy, which I think would be good for Carla. Okay, right. I think we've covered off, Carla, your section. I'm just desperately looking down through all my notes to see if we've missed anything. And then I think we're going to move on to, we've already had an update from the Headbourne-Worthy Parish Council, and we're going to move on to item number 12, which is labelled as Community Governance Review, City Councillors, but as I hadn't specifically identified someone to come and talk to us, I'm going to, if you like, just say a few words about this. There has been, as I mentioned earlier, when Mr. Slynn did his session, I responded to that. On previous occasions, the City Council has said that Kings Barton in itself was not yet at a stage that it warranted a community governance review. Bearing in mind, sort of, things move on, and the development is progressing from a numbers point of view, but also communities and the relationships between people is also developing, and we see the parish council really now much more heavily involved in supporting facilities and so on, and so on. So things have changed, but also the most significant change has been the advent of local government reorganisation or review about how local government is going to be done, which ultimately, assuming it all goes ahead, and that is still a little bit of an assumption, but we are fairly confident it will do so, we will have a significant change at the county and city council levels, which effectively will be merged, and there will be new unitary authorities, albeit they won't cover the whole of we don't think they're going to cover all of the Hampshire region as one big unitary, but there will be 3 or 4-ish, give or take, and that's a moving target at the moment. So one of the consequences of that is it has really brought to the fore the fact that we have a very substantial unparished region. It's actually Winchester, the city of Winchester, which it isn't parished, and it is managed through the city council ward structure, and the ward councillors form something called the town forum, and the town forum has responsibilities and ability to raise money through the city council to support its work in managing things like recreation grounds and play areas and all that sort of stuff. But it's unparished, and in a situation, the considered view was in a situation where we have a much bigger authority overseeing us and governing us, that really it was time to address this anomaly where there is an unparished area, which is essentially the Winchester City area. So moves went ahead, and there's been a proposal, and then to have what's a community governance review covering that particular area, but also to then look at some of the anomalies where in the immediate surrounding areas, of which for this forum the most obvious is where the boundary sits between Headbourne-Worthy Parish Council and what is the unparished area. So there are something like about 60, maybe 80 homes which are currently in the unparished area of the city, and then the remaining 600 plus, and that will grow to 1900-ish, would be in Headbourne-Worthy Parish. So that's an anomaly. There are other anomalies, or boundary, if you like, anomalies in other parts of the district, and it's usually where it's about typically boundary things, but not necessarily universally. So I know there's some up near Badger Farm and that area of the city. So the the proposal that's gone through initial stages is for a community governance review that covers the unparished area and some of those adjacent areas to determine how those areas would like to be governed at the parish and town council level going forward. At this stage, nothing has been predetermined. The stage it's at is the Licensing and Regulation Committee of Winchester City Council has agreed to this proposal to initiate this community governance review. The next stage is that particular Licensing and Regulation Committee has set up what's called a task and finish group of representatives from within the town, the city area, and some from outside of the city area, to, as I would call it, set out the terms of reference and to work out how this consultation is going to go forward. It's really important to realise this is a democratic process, and it's largely governed by national legislation. So this task and finish group of representatives will be governed by legislation, which we will learn about more than we know already through the work of the City Council governance team, who understand all these things much better than we do. It's important to note here, and I took note of Councillor Watter's concerns, that while the unparished town area is a significant part of this, it also aims to give an opportunity to residents who live in and around the boundaries to a chance to express their interest from several options, not just one option, about how they are governed in future. One of those options could be, and I've got to tread really carefully here, because until we go through the task and finish group goes through its process, I don't know what the options will be. But one of those options could well be to give people the opportunity to stay as they are. And if the residents of Kings Barton say we want to stay as we are, that is going to have a really big bearing on the outcome. The community governance review should be thought of as a process, and I think it's going to be as a minimum a two-stage process. Again, until we get into the task and finish group, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it's going to be a two-stage process to establish, kind of, if you like, work out the big picture stuff, and then say, okay, we think we've got an idea of the big picture options that we need to present, and then only at the point when you think you know what the options are is when you go out to actually get a final consultation. So it's likely to be two-stage, could be three-stage, and through that process establish the opinions. It's not, as far as I understand it, it's not all going to be thought of as one big, huge, humongous thing, and it's either you're in or you're out. I don't think it's going to be like that. But again, until we go through the task and finish group, group and see the next stages, it can't be 100% sure of how to describe it. What else was I going to say? Yeah, okay, I think I've more or less covered it. And just as, if you like, to declare some of the membership on it, I don't remember all the names, but I know some of the names are from within the current town area. There are several people who are, when I say several people, several members, city councillor members, who are from outside of the town area in adjacent wards. And from within this meeting, I am one of those representatives who will be in there arguing the case, if I need to argue the case. I know very much that the feeling about Kings Barton is that, Kings Barton want to be in one thing, not spread across two things. At least that's my impression. You know, in the end, the consultation might say no, it isn't, but that's my impression. And the other person, I hope you won't mind me. Actually, I'm not sure if he's still on here at the moment. He's not here to say please don't say so. But Councillor Godfrey, who was with us for a large chunk of this meeting, is one of the other outside of the Winchester town area representatives on the task and finish group. So there are two people on that who will be hopefully trying to shape the and keep an eye on what emerges from that task and finish group to make sure it doesn't what's the word it doesn't block an outcome that we think would be very well received by the public in the areas concerned. That's it. That's what I was going to say about in terms of community government review. I hope if there are questions, I'm happy to try and take them, but I'm not 100% sure I'll be able to answer them. And I know some people some of the members in this group are in the town area and have been briefed on in a town forum meeting. So any questions from anybody about what I've just said? Good. Gosh, thank you. Right. Right. That's a little bit of a surprise. You slightly caught me out there.
I think you covered it very thoroughly.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I've got a question here from Message Centre. Hang on, remind me who's Message Centre. Come on, Message Centre.
Councillor Waters.
Councillor Waters. Yes.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
I'm just Councillor Crimoisin. I listened to that with interest in regards to the fact we're obviously on Headbourne Worthy Parish Council, and so with the group that are meeting to discuss that boundary, you're obviously representative of the Worthies. So would that therefore include Headbourne Worthies representation to yourself to take to that meeting? That's my question to you.
Well, I am both I'm a Worthies city councillor, and I am very keen to make sure I'm representing the views of the Worthies as a whole, but specifically the areas that might have options to choose from. And so as long as I know what options are preferred by representatives, but also the public, I will, by that I mean people who aren't on parish councils. I will do my best to faithfully make the case, but it's a process that is governed by legislation, and none of us in this room, as far as I know, possibly Councillor Cunningham may have been involved in a community government review before, but none of us, as far as I know, have been involved. So it is a journey into exploration. I'm not going to say it's in exploration. We will learn lots, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
Okay, Mike, Celine, I'm going to take a question from you because I know you represent, you live in the border area where all sorts of infighting happens.
Thank you very much, Chair. Right, yes, one of the issues really is whether Kings Barton should remain as part of Headbourne Worthy Parish Council. That's been debated. So I think that should be one of the issues that's included in the consideration, whether in essence that Kings Barton should become its own community council or not. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. And just to be clear, it is a process in which the people in the task force will have some opportunity to shape the process and the questions that are asked, but ultimately the outcomes should be, and I think it's right that they should be, will be determined by residents. So, you know, I may have a view on it. If in the end democracy says it's something different, then so be it. And my focus will be on making sure that, you know, that we protect that part of democracy. And if it change, you know, if it's different to what I think, that will change, you know, change my opinions. Okay, I hope that addresses your points. Right, that's item 12 done. Thank you very much. And let's move on to item number 13. Deborah, I think we asked you to perhaps talk about the S106 and update any questions from forum members. Deborah, I know it's 8 o'clock and when we've kept you right all the way through the meeting. Could you just give us a quick update on the S106 report?
Sure. Most of the updates result from the deed of variation that's been agreed recently. So if I just take you through to the changes that have been made.
Yeah.
At 10.1, relates to the long-term management and maintenance of the ecological amenity space, the land. The update is that the land transfer from the owner to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust has been agreed and the contract is largely drafted, so we're almost there on that point.
Yeah.
The next point I would draw your attention to is 4.18, where Hampshire County Council has confirmed the second payment was made in April.
Payment for what? Please, Alice, Deborah.
Sorry?
Payment for what?
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Second highway access contribution.
Okay.
And also at 4.214, regarding the bus subsidy payment, yeah. HCC has confirmed that the second payment was received in April.
Okay.
Then we look to 4.352, which relates to the review of the car club scheme.
Yeah.
And that's triggered at 700th occupation. So that's coming up. That's the next trigger in the 106.
Yeah. Okay, so it was very pertinent that we talked about that today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, a number of these Councillor Porter had already covered off when we talked about the implementation works and things. So it's really just sort of covering over what some other members of the forum have already dealt with.
Right.
At 4.37A, that relates to constructing the link road works to binder course level. And that is a clause that's been inserted via the deed of variation, and that now relates to the prior occupation at 750.
Okay. So that reflects the trigger points that Councillor Porter talked about. Brilliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we move on to Schedule 2, Part 5. That's another trigger that's coming up at 725 units, and that's the implementation programme that both Councillor Porter and Carla covered off quite well.
Yeah.
And at Schedule 2, Part 7, the trigger for the new Andover Road works and the Andover Road Hairstock Road Junction improvement works.
Yeah.
The trigger's been pushed back on that from 750 units to 1,000 as a result of the deed of variation.
Yeah.
And then the last point is Schedule 2, Part 8, which relates to the completion of the downgrading of the Andover Road works.
Yeah.
That trigger has been pushed back to 1,050.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the starting point was on that one, but it's now 1,050 as agreed in the deed of variation.
I have a hunch it was 650 or maybe 700, but it is what it is. It's all dependent on the spine road. So you obviously couldn't downgrade it until you've got the new road in place. So we'd be very worried if it was anything less. Okay.
And those are the updates on the 106.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. It's good that those correlate with what we've discussed earlier in the meeting. Okay. Thank you. Any questions before I move on to close? I'm going to assume we're all desperate to go and get dinner, or if you have to travel home. So just untangle my notes here. So just before we close, when I asked Nancy, who's our Democratic Services Officer supporting this meeting, when I asked her to end the recording, it will also end the Teams meeting, which in the past has happened somewhat abruptly and not given us an opportunity to just have an elegant departure. So with that, I will say thank you to everyone here, members of the forum, Carla, and our speakers from KBRA, and oh, sorry, I've already forgotten his name. I'm terrible like that. Our speaker from Hildeborn Road, Nick, I think it was. Thank you for your contributions this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And it's good night from me, and someone will echo it's good night from him too. And Nancy, could you end the recording and close the meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm doing that now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.